The scrolls of Abraham are among the earliest and most honored forms of divine revelation mentioned in the sacred traditions of Islam. Referred to in Arabic as Suhuf Ibrahim, these scrolls are explicitly mentioned in the Quran as having been revealed to the prophet Abraham, alongside the scrolls of Moses. The name itself carries deep spiritual and historical meaning. The word scrolls refers to written or recorded divine instructions, granted for the guidance of humanity during a time of immense spiritual awakening. These scrolls are not regarded as a complete scripture like the Torah or the Quran, but rather as foundational messages containing wisdom, ethics, and the essence of divine truth. The name Abraham is known across all Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as the father of nations, a symbol of unwavering faith, and the friend of God. His name in Hebrew, Avraham, means father of multitudes, and in Arabic, Ibrahim, it retains the same reverence. By naming these sacred writings the scrolls of Abraham, the traditions affirm that this prophet received not only verbal inspiration but also written revelation, recorded for teaching, remembrance, and instruction. These scrolls are unique in their scope and style. Unlike laws or detailed legal codes, they are believed to have consisted of short, powerful teachings and deep reflections on life, death, creation, and divine justice. They were a personal yet universal message delivered through Abraham for the benefit of all who would walk in his spiritual path. The scrolls likely contained praises of the Creator, insights into the moral order of the world, and commands to live in submission to divine will. Their title also signifies the timeless influence of Abraham. Although these scrolls have not physically survived, their name stands as a testament to a prophet whose message of monotheism, sacrifice, and trust in God changed the course of human history. The scrolls of Abraham symbolize not just early revelation, but the turning point when divine guidance began to reach across families, tribes, and nations. In short, the scrolls of Abraham were messages of wisdom entrusted to a man who stood at the crossroads of revelation. Their name reflects divine authorship, prophetic trust, and the everlasting light that Abraham carried as a guide for generations to come. Prophet who received it? The scrolls of Abraham were revealed to one of the greatest and most revered prophets in human history, Abraham, also known as Ibrahim in Arabic. He is recognized across the three major monotheistic religions as a patriarch, a servant of God, and a prophet who passed the most difficult trials in pursuit of divine truth. The prophetic life of Abraham was one of obedience, migration, sacrifice, and unwavering faith. To him, God revealed these scrolls as part of his mission to guide humanity back to monotheism, righteousness, and the eternal covenant. Abraham was born into a society deeply entangled in idol worship. He challenged the beliefs of his people and even confronted his own father, who made and sold idols. From a young age, he showed wisdom, clarity, and courage beyond his years. His journey as a prophet began not only with divine inspiration but with deep contemplation of the heavens, the stars, the moon, and the sun. Through these reflections, he reached the truth that there is only one God, creator of all. The scrolls given to Abraham came at a time when he was forming a new spiritual path, one that rejected falsehood and stood firm upon divine oneness. His role as a prophet was not to establish a kingdom, but to establish faith in the hearts of people across regions. Abraham traveled across ancient lands, Babylonia, Canaan, Egypt, and Arabia, preaching the message of surrender to the Creator. Along this journey, the scrolls served as a source of strength, a code of conduct, and a tool for teaching others the way of righteousness. Islamic tradition teaches that Abraham was given 10 scrolls filled with wisdom. Though the content of these scrolls has not been preserved in detail, early scholars describe them as short passages of spiritual guidance and moral instruction. They were filled with reminders of death, the shortness of life, the importance of sincerity, and the reward of the hereafter. Abraham, as a prophet, embodied every teaching he received. His patience, his sacrifice, and his prayers reflected the soul of the scrolls. As a recipient of divine writings, Abraham occupies a central place in the prophetic chain. He received revelation not as a scholar or a ruler, but as a friend of God, someone who lived every word he preached. The scrolls he received shaped not only his life, but the future of nations and the direction of religious history. Time and context of revelation. The scrolls of Abraham were revealed during a time of spiritual confusion, political fragmentation, and widespread idol worship. This period, estimated to be around 2,000 years before the Common Era, marked a turning point in human spiritual history. Cities and civilizations were growing, trade routes were expanding, and cultural exchange was becoming more common. Yet amid this growth, there was a deep loss of truth. People had turned away from the pure monotheism of earlier prophets and had fallen into worship of carved images, celestial bodies, and human kings. In this environment of deviation and spiritual darkness, Abraham rose as a solitary voice of truth. The divine scrolls were given to him not in a courtroom, a palace, or a temple, but in the wilderness of sincerity and struggle. They came to him during his journey of exile, his confrontation with kings, and his isolation from his people. The context of revelation was one of both internal testing and external resistance. Abraham did not receive these scrolls in comfort or safety, but in the middle of hardship, migration, and deep personal sacrifice. The society around Abraham was hostile to divine unity. His call to reject idols and worship the unseen Creator was seen as dangerous, rebellious, and offensive. When he broke the idols of his people, he was cast into the fire. When he rejected the ways of the powerful, he was forced to leave his homeland. Yet through all of this, Abraham remained firm. The scrolls may have been revealed to him gradually, offering divine comfort, teaching, and support as he faced trial after trial. This period was also a time when Abraham was establishing a new foundation for future generations. Through the scrolls, he laid the spiritual groundwork for his descendants, many of whom would become prophets. His teachings would influence Isaac and Ishmael, and through them, the lineages of Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. The scrolls were therefore more than personal guidance, they were the blueprint of an everlasting covenant. The time and context of this revelation highlight the power of faith in a world filled with distraction and disbelief. The scrolls came not to a kingdom, but to a man whose strength was not in armies but in prayer, truth, and submission. They mark a moment in history when heaven spoke once more, calling mankind back through the voice of a man alone, but never forsaken. Core message and teachings. The scrolls of Abraham carried teachings that formed the spiritual backbone of early monotheism. These sacred writings were not focused on ritual laws or national identity, but rather on universal truths meant to shape the inner life of the believer and guide them in their relationship with the Creator. At the heart of these scrolls was the call to absolute submission to the one God, a submission that was not blind, but based on deep reflection, gratitude, and conscious surrender. The scrolls urged the people to remember their origin and their destination. Life, as described in Abraham's teachings, was brief and purposeful. The scrolls likely reminded readers that every soul would return to its Maker, and that actions in this world carried weight in the next. This concept of accountability and eternal justice stood as a central pillar in the scrolls. They emphasized that success in life was not measured by wealth, fame, or power, but by sincerity, truthfulness, and humility before the Creator. Another major teaching of the scrolls was detachment from worldly desires. Abraham himself lived a life of wandering, leaving behind his homeland, family, and comfort for the sake of divine truth. The scrolls echoed the spirit of sacrifice, calling people to free themselves from the chains of greed, pride, and selfishness. They warned against the temporary illusion of material gain and urged believers to keep their hearts fixed on what lasts beyond death. The scrolls also spoke of the equality of human beings. Abraham's message reached across tribes and borders, teaching that all people were created by one Lord and should treat one another with justice and compassion. The scrolls likely condemned oppression, false pride, and exploitation, while praising those who practiced charity, honesty, and hospitality. These values would later become the moral foundation of all Abrahamic scriptures. Prayer, remembrance, and trust in divine decree were other vital teachings in the scrolls. They taught that true strength came from reliance on God, not on human means alone. Abraham's own life was a living example of this trust, from his journey into the unknown, to the sacrifice of his beloved son, to the building of the sacred sanctuary in the desert. Each trial was answered with trust, and the scrolls likely urged every soul to follow that same path of surrender. In summary, the scrolls of Abraham were teachings for the soul, calling humanity to awaken, reflect, and walk the path of righteousness, guided not by the noise of the world, but by the eternal voice of truth. Preservation and legacy. The scrolls of Abraham have not survived in physical form, yet their impact has echoed through the ages in both message and legacy. Unlike later scriptures that were preserved through writing, memorization, and transmission by communities, these scrolls were revealed during a time when sacred texts were personal, portable, and limited in circulation. The scrolls were not meant to become institutional laws or national identities. Instead, they served as early spiritual beacons, guiding the prophet and those around him in a world not yet ready for codified religion. Despite the absence of the scrolls themselves, their essence did not vanish. The teachings they carried were embedded in the life, character, and actions of Abraham. His trust in God, his devotion, and his moral uprightness became a living scripture for generations to come. Later prophets inherited these teachings, not just through lineage, but through the spiritual path he blazed. The principles found in the scrolls, divine unity, justice, patience, and faith, were repeated and expanded upon in the Torah, the Gospel, and the Quran. In the Quran, God directly references the scrolls of Abraham and Moses, stating that their contents included wisdom, remembrance, and moral instruction. Though not quoted word for word, this recognition affirms the divine origin of the scrolls and places them among the honored revelations of sacred history. Early Islamic scholars held that Abraham received 10 scrolls containing concise, powerful teachings. These were not forgotten but became part of the oral memory and spiritual identity of believers. The legacy of the scrolls can also be seen in the universality of Abraham's message. He is remembered as the father of nations, the builder of the Kaaba, and the one who stood against a world of idols with nothing but truth. His teachings reached through Isaac and Jacob to the Israelites, and through Ishmael to the Arabs. The scrolls he received lit the first flame in a long line of revelation that would eventually shape billions of lives. Today, the scrolls of Abraham are remembered not through written text, but through their fruits. They live on in the faith of those who call upon the one God, who strive for justice, who turn to prayer, and who remember that every soul is on a journey back to its Creator. Though the scrolls may have faded from parchment, they are preserved in hearts that walk the path Abraham once walked, guided by the eternal truths he received.